If you were a dissenter to Francisco Franco's regime during the Spanish Civil War, chances are you would end up in one of the makeshift prisons used to house the thousands of political prisoners. This 19th century fort was one of them, and according to some, was home to one of the most important prison breaks of the 20th century. Seeing walkers make day trips here to get away from the city and enjoy the panoramic views, it is hard to imagine the macabre history of this prison camp. But 75 years ago, the fathers and grandfathers of people still living in this area broke out and tried to win back their freedom.
They
were often laborers, and their crime was to be associated with a trade union, as you can in any free country. The prison break was made towards the end of the Spanish Civil War of 1936 to 1939, on the 22nd of May, 1938. And the motivation to write this book, although there are other similar stories that have been written about it, comes from my amazement that the most important prison break that we know of in Europe went by almost unnoticed.
The numbers involved tell a tale of determination, but ultimately one of tragedy as well. As of the over 700 people who made the escape, only 3 made it to the French border behind me, with hundreds of those being executed on their return to this very spot.
What I mainly talk about in the book is the biography of 3 of the 795 documented escapees that managed to arrive to the French border. The 3 of them were kept in French concentration camps, like hundreds of thousands of Spanish Republicans, and the 3 of them died without ever returning to Spain. But none of them regretted their actions.
The 3 who made it to France and to freedom dealt with their past in their own personal ways. One told everything to his daughter. Another never mentioned it until he was pressed on the subject. Each man handled his pain in his own way. In addition to these 3, perhaps the most important hypothesis of Fenmin's book concerns a possible 4th man, who made it to the border but whose story is shrouded in mystery.
In 1998, approximately, in a small village with only 30 inhabitants, located between the fort and the border, at some 50 kilometers, there arrives a stranger who introduces himself as an escapee from the prison of Escava in 1938, saying that he was able to escape from an encounter with his pursuers, and, despite having a bullet wound in his arm which left him scarred, he arrives to a small French village called Banca that is in the Aldud Valley. He took some time to get better and then eventually moved to California via Mexico.
Perhaps legendary, perhaps real. No one can be sure if the 4th man ever made it to American soil, but his story stands for the struggle of all those men whose lives were taken away on this hilltop through decades of captivity or execution. This is Paul Walsh reporting for JM1, Spain.